you have this maturity that I don't think people noticed that you were 14, right?
The teachers did. Obviously, yeah.
I have a scholarship, and when I choose a scholar, I think maturity is very important. I really don't care how old they are. Somebody could be 18 and they could act like they are 14, right? But some people who are 14 and can be acting like older and mature, and this is one of the criteria of my scholarship. So where did you start, and where are you today?
Well, I mentioned my school earlier. So from that point onwards, I think the next turning point, or the big opportunity, was a scholarship he offered me to go to Millfield or to study in the UK for 6 years. That was the first time I went overseas, not just UK, but anywhere outside of China. So that changed my life completely. I think I still have to work hard for whether school or work afterwards, but that opportunity opened so many doors for me that didn't exist before I went overseas.
Yeah.
So that was probably a turning point. And then later on, I think getting your first full-time job after leaving university, where I managed to get into a very prestigious bank, that really helped me to settle down.
Let's talk a little bit about the beginning. When you first arrived in England, because in the early 90s, China was a very different place from today.
Yep.
Now I go to China, wow, everything is so advanced, and the Wi-Fi is so fast, and all the buildings, are so beautiful. So how did you feel when you first stepped your feet into London?
It was definitely a huge culture shock. The language is different, food is different, people is different. It's a country I've never visited before. But I think you have to adapt quickly. You have to learn the language quickly. And I remember one of the first meals I had in school, it was not, you don't get served the food on the table, but you have to ask somebody to pass it to you. And you have to ask what it is.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of the names of the food that was available on the table, so I only ate the bread roll in front of me. But I had to learn very quickly that evening. I went back to my dormitory and asked my roommate, and they told me everything.
Do you have a breakthrough moment?
It's very hard to say. Other than the experience we talked about, getting into the special program in Beijing, getting the scholarship, and then university, and the first banking job. I think those were all key moments.
On a different subject now, what are the 3 key qualities of someone if they need to get ahead?
I think hard work, which is a trait that most Chinese have, it is key. It's very important. You rarely see somebody who doesn't work hard succeed in life. And I think being smart also helps. And this doesn't necessarily mean high IQ. Could be very good EQ or social skills, people skills. Those are very important. And I think in the current environment, being able to learn quickly and being adaptive will be key, because our working environment is changing. What was a good job 10, 20 years ago may not be the case 10 years later.
Yeah.
And if you have a 30, 40-year career, then you need to adjust.
Yeah. What happens if in the middle of your career, technology takes over?
I think that's actually happening for many people. This is a trend you cannot reverse. It is happening.
As you say, being adaptive is very important. So change.
You either do something else, enjoy, or learn the technology that is, you try to make it help you rather than fight against it. Because if the machine can do what you do, you're not going to win the battle. Right? You have to learn how this will make you more productive.
I think social skill is one thing that is, one has to develop. It's very important to have real people connection. I always stress on that. The only thing human, AI cannot replace is the heart. I think the most important quality for me, it's social skill. When you lead a team, the team has to, not as simple as liking you, they have to admire you, they have to know that you have the knowledge, and then you're able to teach, like mentor them. I think mentorship is also very, very important.
Yeah, I agree.
What has been your biggest challenge? And how does that make you the person you are today?
That's a tricky one. I think I left the financial industry a couple of years ago. I think I had a reasonably successful career in finance, but it's very demanding. It's not necessarily the best work-life balance you can get. So a few years ago, I decided,
especially you have 2 children.
Younger children, they're getting ready for some exams that it'll be much better if somebody can help them with. And I always had a passion. You mentioned mentoring earlier. I always had a passion to teach other people. I guess maybe that came from my family background. My parents were teachers. My grandparents were teachers. So from an early age, I enjoyed teaching. So whether it was in finance, I helped to train a lot of the junior members that came through the door. And later on, when I stopped being in finance, I took up a lecturing position, guest lecturer, and not a full-time professor one in Peking University, just across the border in Shenzhen. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think teaching is very important. I'm not talking about being a teacher. I think teaching your own children, and we have to extend our legacy